host, Lee Patrick Hanks, with my partner, Amara.
Hi.
And we're live here in Mount Shasta, California today. This is our first broadcast, our first program that we're going to be presenting, a 12-part series over the next several months leading into 2012. The topic of the entire series is 2012, the Gateway to Universal Awakening. And as you know, all of you out there, this is such a dynamic, extraordinary time in our world today. And we felt with the convergence of an extraordinary partnership that we have come together, Amara and myself, and today we'd like to share a little bit about that with you first before we get into the actual program. And if we're going to give you a little bit of an idea of how the 90 minutes is going to take place, we will take a few breaks along the way, just so you know, and we'll let you in on that as we decide when that will happen. We're going to kind of feel our way through this broadcast. This is our first live broadcast. And we'll also be sharing with you a lot of new and old information for all of you that have been out there in the consciousness movement and awakening movement for a long time. And so I would like to first just introduce Amara and welcome her with the work that I've been involved with for many, many years. So, hi.
Hi, Lee. Lee and I are really, really so happy that you've joined us today. We have come together from very different backgrounds. Our training in awareness and the consciousness movement has come from different sides of the spectrum, and it's really beautiful to be complementing each other in this series and in life. So it's really fabulous to be able to share this with you. Lee has a great deal of experience and research and study in what's happening in the macrocosm, and he's able to share that with you, and also how it feeds back into the individual life. Lee, can you share some of that?
I will, and if anyone that's out there today that's a part of the broadcast live, if there's any questions that you might like to throw out to us, we have a chat room on the website, emergingnewworld.com, and you should see that underneath the actual screen that you're watching the live broadcast. So during the breaks, we'll take a look at some of the questions and see if they're appropriate for what we're doing in our dialogue today too as well. And if not, we'll also get to them after the broadcast for sure. I really wanted to start out with what's going on in the cosmos. Why is 2012 such an exciting and extraordinary time for us? I'm sure that the many that have been studying this work and just listening to even the media at large today, 2012 has been certainly exploited, it's been expanded, it's been extraordinarily researched from many ancient systems of knowledge as well as modern day physics. And there is something that seems to be happening in the cosmos. It is truly happening within our solar system that has to do with our sun affecting the entire galactic form of the lining up with our planets within the system. But there's even something more important, and I'd like to show an image here that this first image that we're going to be putting up here. As we talk about the bigger picture to start out with the program, think of it as this image here on the screen that you can see. Our sun is within this extraordinarily larger complexity of our galaxy and the presentation that we're traveling in every single moment of our awareness, and actually within our physical body, and we're on this planet. We're out there in the solar system. We're out there within our sun. And there is a dynamic alignment that's taking place, which the ancients have talked about, which is the December 21st, 2012 date. So this is part of the reason why we're even doing this work, and why this has certainly been my studies and research for many years. And now that we're in this countdown, or this time period, it bodes well for us to understand that there's a bigger picture going on, and what we are going to be doing during this entire series is bringing it back into each one of us individually, as well as showing the macro micro as a part of the schematic. So we want to just make sure that you understand that we'll be going out there and will be coming back, but it's the emergence or the convergence of both aspects of that, which is what Amara and I are going to present to you over these next 12 parts. The next image I wanted to show you before we get closer to the Earth is this incredible alignment that's taking place right now. And you can see the sun has been traveling through the galaxy for quite a long time. And we're moving towards what we call this galactic equator, or this alignment that takes place cyclically about every 13,000 years, 26,000 year cycle. I don't want to get into too much of the astrophysics. You can certainly research this all on the internet and Google any of these aspects of it. But what is so dynamic about this is that this is representing something that the ancients knew about and have historically written about, that about every 13,000 years we go into these dynamic shifts. Only this one looks like it could be a shift that could be anywhere from 13,000, 5,000 years up to 4.5 million years in the making, and even more than that. So how does that play out for all of us? And we're going to continue to bring that back to you as the listener and to the one that's watching this webinar, so that you understand that it's all a part of what we're all experiencing together. So, and with that, as we get closer now, we're seeing this 0-point alignment, which is going to take place starting on around December 21st, 2012. We are already in that alignment. We're already moving towards that, and we have been for some time. But now we're getting to this very close ratio, and pretty much what we talk about is 0 point hitting December 21st, 2012. And that doesn't mean that we're at the end of the world or that we're end of everything. Actually, we're at the beginning of something new that's going to come on the other side of that galactic equator and that 0-point line that you're seeing on the graphic. So with that, as we get now closer to how is that affecting the Earth, how is that affecting us, and how is that affecting everything that's going to be shifting and changing over these next several months and years to come. So the last image I wanted to show you in this series is, what is it doing to the Earth, and how is it affecting us individually, and how is it affecting us as people, inhabitants on this Earth, as humans? Well, you're seeing the effects of the weather, which is dramatically changing. In Mount Shasta here right now, it's almost 55 degrees. We have not had a winter here, and this is my first winter in Mount Shasta. And we're finding out that the weather patterns, especially on the western coast of the United States, have dramatically changed, which is going to affect a lot of different aspects of commerce, of changes in the water system, and how that affects our agriculture. We have a lot of things happening here. We also are looking at solar flares. We're looking at these are the solar wave cycles that are coming forth, and it all seems to be coming towards a real nexus point as we hit December 21st, 2012. Some of the other things that we're looking at too is a pole reversal, which has been talked about, which I won't get into too much today. We'll get into that later in the series. We're also looking about earthquakes, the fires. These are all aspects of the external reality that are shifting and changing, that are giving us the opportunity and also the challenges that we have been dealing with for some time. So now we bring it back to ourselves personally. And this is where I'd like to bring Amara back into the discussion with this. So it is affecting not only the cosmos, it is affecting the Earth, it's affecting the environment, it's affecting everything that is happening to us as we're living in this world right now today. And it also is coming right into the body, the emotional body. Maybe you could take it from here and then move it in even closer for all of us.
Lee and I are in contact with many people who call for a little guidance, because during this transition period that we call 2012 and beyond, there's been a lot of intensity that's been coming up in people's lives, externally, as Lee was sharing, with all of these events that are happening on the planet, but also internally with crises in people's family lives, disturbances with their career or work life. But most specifically, what we're hearing is that people are experiencing very strange and uncomfortable new experiences through their body. This is something that's sort of in line with what I've been working with for many years in my practice helping people work through stored pieces of energetics and painful experiences that have been locked in the body. These experiences are happening to all of us, whether subtly or more dramatically. What we believe is that all of this is part of the great gift that is coming with this beautiful time, this pivotal year, 2012, that these symptoms of heart pain or backache or headaches or perhaps even more serious symptoms are all pointing you inward to something that wants your attention.
The body certainly is giving us the attention, isn't it? But like the people that Amar has been alluding to, I even got a phone call today from somebody who's really in distress, and they're being challenged on many levels of their life. And if you look at our ecosystem, for instance, same thing's happening. We're putting stress on the ecosystem of our planet. We're seeing the stress within countries. We're seeing the stress within leadership roles. We're seeing a lot of the imbalances that have been taking place in this cycle for the last 13,000 years, if you want to go back to the Kali Yuga, and the ideas of everything has to go through a cycle of darkness, and now we're coming to this time where all things, in order to get rebalance, so to speak, there's a lot of things that are coming up for the individual, and they're coming up in our world. And so, one of the things that I hear a lot too is that the disease and the heart problems associated with high blood pressure, people that, as you mentioned, have strange feelings and situations going in their body. Gallbladder is another issue for a lot of people right now, which emotionally has to do with unprocessed emotions, fears, the past. How does that play out with, certainly with the people you've been working with, and how that's manifesting to us, and why? Why is that happening?
I would like to use myself as an example. This morning, I woke up much earlier than I'm accustomed to waking up, and there was heart pain. I knew that I was okay. It wasn't that I went into a kind of alarm situation around, oh my God, I have a heartache. Or a heart attack. It wasn't that. It was a signal for me to get out of bed, which is what I did. I went into the living room. I lit a candle. I got something warm to drink, and I sat with this pain, just being with it, just sitting patiently, openly, being with it. In some time, everything passed, and I went back to bed, and there was this sense of openness. It was like a contraction that wanted my attention. I gave it a little attention. This contraction simply dissolved away. This is a very, very common way to be with these pains that are coming up. It's a beautiful way to allow a contraction in the body, which is holding an energetic of fear or pain from the past. We don't know what it is very often. It just wants a little attention so it can dissolve away.
Yeah, that brings up a great point, and something I'd like to address here because of the psychotherapeutic training, some of the Western psychology and ideas of how you work with this kind of situation. People have a tendency to distract themselves when they are in these types of situations, or they ignore it, or they don't want to feel it. So what you're suggesting, as you and I know in our own personal practice is that instead of doing that, you're suggesting that you actually go in without knowing what it is, or even does it matter what it is?
It doesn't matter. The reason I use this example is because it just happened. It was like something was knocking on my door, and I woke up with this feeling in the body, and I decided to answer the door, to open the door, and just be with it. It was something that I'm very familiar with, because in all the years that I've worked with people, I know that this is the key to releasing, to opening, to being able to receive the gift. There are these gifts coming all the time, and especially during a period of intensity, like right now, 2012, into the next year, possibly into the next year. These are gifts of clearing. So yes, answer that knock. Go to the door, open it, give it 20 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 seconds, whatever you can. In this case, I got out of bed in probably 20 or 30 minutes, and then I went back to sleep.
So it kind of reminds me of a crisis that might come out any day of any week in the world, an earthquake, the tsunami in last year. It kind of reminds me of this experience. In fact, there's a video that just was sent around on the internet 2 days ago that it was a beautiful showing that the people of Japan that went through the tsunami 1 year later, not even a year, December of this last year, how quickly, instead of dwelling on what happened or dwelling on why it happened,
right,
their recovery and the experience that blew me away in that 8-minute video was that how grateful they were to come back and start over and to go from wherever they were. How does that work? Because that seems to be the key for getting out of the past or relenting on the past for most everybody.
Life is this incredible mystery. And right now, in 2012, we're living, one of the greatest mysteries. I mean, this time has been talked about for thousands and thousands of years. We don't exactly know what's happening. You can take that macrocosmic view with all these traditions, 25 different traditions that have spoken about this time, and bring it right here, right to you. So it's embracing this mystery. The mystery is playing through your body, just as it's playing through the body of the planet. We never know when there's going to be a fire, a tornado, a hurricane. These things we've got these beautiful scientific tools to try and forecast these things, but really it's the mystery that keeps us, in this constant state of surprise and wonder. So when it's happening in the body, when the mystery is arising in your own body, just go for it. Just go, I don't know why, but this is happening. I'm going to be with it and see what happens. So.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point too, because the mystery from the ancient mystery schools and ancient training was finding balance, finding that balance. And it didn't mean that you had to know the answer to any one situation at the time, or why things weren't going the way they were, or why is this happening to me, or the guilt, or the shame, or the blame. All these things that go throughout all of our historical evidence of why this planet is where it is today, even. I mean, we really can't answer all the questions. In fact, are the answers to the questions that important?
It's the dance that's important. So balance, we can pull on the metaphor of dance. In this case, we're talking about the body. We're talking about symptoms that people are having that are energetic movements through the space of the body. Our body is really not just this physical being. It is this emotional being. It is this mental being. It is this light being or etheric being. And their energies sort of playing on all these different aspects of the body. It's very much a dance if you accept the invitation. The invitation, in this case, for me this morning, for many, was through the hand of pain. Woke up with some pain. Was I going to accept the invitation to the dance? Yes, I did. And something very beautiful happened. The rest of the morning just flowed. It was really lovely. What would have happened if I'd gotten afraid of that that pain, or if I just said, no, I'm not going to pay any attention to it. This is not accepting the dance. This is not moving with balance with what's being offered.
Perfect segue into my next question and comment. What we see with people in relationships to anyone, their dog, their family, their partner, their boss, we see a lot of blaming, a lot of guilt, a lot of shaming. When that pain or that discomfort, or you did this to me, or you're not doing that to me, and again, we can look at the external world and say, look at all the wars today, look at the famine, and why is all this happening to us when in fact there's not a whole lot we can do with that external. That's our mirror, the external world as we see it, which is why I've studied this and traveled around the country in different parts of the world over the many years, wanting to know what is the dance of the earth, what is the dance of consciousness. But what I found, again, over and over and over, it has nothing to do with any of that. It has everything to do with yourself. So I go back to this, to the idea when people are attempting to blame or not accept this. What would you say to someone right now that's in pain out there, that just, they're confused, they're in fear? How would you approach this in this moment, as we've been doing for the first part of this broadcast?
It, of course, is very tender when anyone is experiencing fear or pain. And, it's never to downsize the experience. But once that tenderness has been offered, what I believe is the deepest truth is that everything is for you. Absolutely nothing is ever against you. And it goes back to the metaphor that I was sharing with you about accepting the dance. The universe, our life, is always offering what is the most beautiful for you, what is the highest octave for you. It's a very, very difficult thing for many people to accept, because we can look at the world and there's huge suffering. This is a place where every variety of suffering is being experienced. And that's why, this compassion and tenderness for that experience is always first to be offered. But if someone is deeply interested in awakening, is deeply interested in what I dare say are the deeper octaves of truth, then that invitation, that fear, that pain, that symptom needs to be responded to as if it's something precious, not as if it's something to push away.
I'm going to use the analogy back to Japan again, because that just sort of helps me bring back the macro part of this. When the tsunami took place and there was a tremendous crisis, and afterwards the recovery period, 300,000 people were homeless, over 300,000 people, hundreds of thousands of people missing. And yet, from what we hear from friends and others, that the way that the Japanese people handled this was such order and dignity and honoring each other, instead of going into hoarding, going into blaming, going into victimness, or going into pity, although I'm sure many of them felt horrendously defeated. It says a lot about what humanity can do, and especially what the awareness of consciousness can do as we're working through these challenges. And there will be challenges coming up.
Right.
We're not here to pretend or to make it like it's all going to be happy and glorious and beautiful. Well, eventually that will probably be the case, and hopefully that will come sooner than later as we move through these shifts, through these next dimensional realities that many of the ancients have said we're moving through. So as I take this back into the individual, and the responsibility that takes instead of projecting it outward. How would you address that?
I feel that what's being offered to each of us is a practice moment to moment to allow your response to whatever is happening in your life, whether it's something like the tsunami in Japan, or whether it's something like my little story of awakening with some uncomfortable symptom in your body. They're both the same. What you do, what you're being offered, what the great gift is here is to be able to open to yourself through the heart. When I got up this morning, I was opening to myself through the heart by simply accepting what had happened and being with it. When people are sharing after a tragedy or a phenomena like the tsunami, they're opening from their heart and responding there. This is not reactivity. This is response from something that is totally intimate with each of us, totally beautiful. We know this response. So
that's certainly the case with what we know with the human body. If we went right into the physical body, that our cells all work together in order for us to be able to even function in this embodiment. And science tells us that about 92% of the time, all cells are working towards a common goal, which is to keep this thing going, this body. But there's about 8% at any one time, free radicals, that are sort of either moving away from the 92%, are rebelling, or just don't want to play the game anymore. So there's that constant rejuvenation, reactivity. And so when the consciousness of the body or the person is staying in a place of moving forward, keeping a positive attitude, depending on, of course, the DNA and other things, but you can overcome great amounts of challenges by you're able to go with the body and with the flow of the intelligence of awareness and of the consciousness of the body. So, and in crisis, we know that about 92% of most people, that when there is a crisis, they work together and they come together. So it's like the internal body and the external collective consciousness all works together. So it feels like if we can somehow, through these webinar series, and certainly many other people that are addressing these issues today, if people understand that we have a 92% chance, I mean, I'm going to just take a shot at this, of making it through these changes in a cohesive way, and be still willing to allow whatever happens without thinking we have the outcome assured or that we even know what the outcome is. So how about the unknown? Let's go there a little bit, because that's sort of why I was winding around to this. And I know that we might even have a slide up here, this next slide, and some of the questions that or even postulating what we would be talking about here. Some of the issues that people are dealing with right now.
The unknown is the flip side of the mystery. There is probably nothing that we fear greater than the unknown. It's really what is the source of our futurizing about anything. We're trying to somehow project that this unknown future is going to be safe or successful or comfortable or easeful. And this fear of the unknown has all of us in a kind of grip. Really, the fear of the unknown is simply the mystery projected into the future.
Well, I was going to just interject a little bit here, because we get a lot of people asking us, well, what should we do? How should we prepare for whatever it is that's going to happen in 2012? Is this part of what you're talking about?
Yeah. You know, when we get called up about this, and of course there's been so much written and spoken about with the economics and the potentials for lack of food or lack of internet accessibility, or all these projections into the future. What we believe is the wisest course is to do your research. If something like this concerns you, do your research, get some information, and then when you're comfortable with whatever information you've gathered, put it aside. Put it aside and just go inside and wait until you know what's exactly right for you. We feel that in all cases, you are your own expert. You will know what's right for you. You don't need an authority figure. We're not here to be your authority figure about anything that we may say. We're simply offering from where we live, from where our heart springs forth, we're offering to you suggestions and support. But around this very touchy subject of what should I do materially about this great unknown that could be changing dramatically, do your research, get comfortable with the facts and figures or the projections, or look at your situation, and then go inside. And if nothing is coming clearly for you, seek out a friend or someone that can connect with their heart so that that inner knowledge will come to you directly through your own heart.
Yes, that's great advice. I've had many people since 2008, the financial crisis that I had addressed before it happened, that there would be a flushing out period, as we know, economically. We know that our country is in serious trouble in terms of the financials, the debt. And again, that's the macro aspect, or it's the exploitation or the distortion, if you want to call it, of an imbalance of what's taking place in our world. And I have suggested to people over and over is that if you need to gather food, and if you have a place where you can do that, and if you're comfortable doing that, then do that. I mean, that's whatever feels in terms of your own consciousness, awareness, even your personality. If that's what you feel good doing, if you want to buy some gold and silver, that's not a bad idea. We have, and we will continue to do so. Only when it doesn't mean that we just face the unknown without accepting or even thinking about the unknown. It's more like, okay, what if some things did happen? Then what would be best way to help us make it through with a little bit of ease and hopefully a little bit of grace, and not ignoring the unknown. So there's another part I wanted to bring up here. What's the difference between ignoring the unknown and accepting the unknown?
I think it goes back to this concept that you offered earlier of balance. We're really maneuvering through this beautiful time where we're being offered the opportunity to look at things differently, to do things differently, to go inside instead of being completely distracted by the outside, whether it's a career choice that we made when we were very young that doesn't feel right now, a relationship that we're in that perhaps has been faltering for a long time, and it's feeling like it's falling apart, or perhaps resurrecting in a new and entirely different way. So it's really important to realize that in a transition period like this year, 2012, many things are being shaken up and moving around. So we want to be able to just go with that. Stay as centered and as balanced as possible. Take care of the nuts and bolts of your life. If that's going to allow you to feel more balanced. But we don't want to get lopsided in precautions. This is really about opening. So anything that brings forward that feeling of opening and gentleness to yourself, that's what's really important right now.
And that leads to another part of this intuition, perception. We're gonna go into that in later webinars. But it feels like you're saying that feeling first, not the mental thoughts and all the busy programs that are running through us that are influenced by the media, television, your stockbroker, the real estate people, whatever it might be. But finding out where that safe, secure internal place is with you first, so that you can make your decisions, or you can at least scope out the terrain and possibilities from that place, not from the head and not from the thoughts. Is that what we're saying here?
That is what we're saying.
Yeah.
And so you sort of led us into my favorite subject. So where is that feeling sense? Because we're not talking about the experience of touching something and that kind of feeling. We're not talking about emotional feeling like, oh, I feel sad or I feel happy. We're talking about something much more subtle and more intimate, which is the experience that is very often referred to as the experience of the heart, the experience of going inside and being still, centered. Many words that reference the feeling, which is also a knowing, as opposed to the thinking and the projecting on the future or the remembering of the past. It's this feeling sense that will help us stay balanced, will help us respond to all the gifts that are being given in this year, that will help us to be awakened to what's new and fresh and vital, will also help us to let go of what's been holding us back, what's old, what's heavy. It's this feeling sense that has this beautiful wisdom, and that we like to reference as the heart.
I'll tell a quick little story on why I'm here today in Mount Shasta, California. I had some very dramatic things happen to me in my personal life in August of this last year. And my head was telling me one thing, and my heart was telling me something else. And of course, the commonality of especially males and men is that we think our way through our dilemmas and our crises and whatever. And, not just men, but certainly in general, we do this as a human species because we think that's our way to figure out things. But, and I was planning to leave, and yet my heart kept saying to me, stay here and work on your pain. Let your pain, let the presentation of what was being gifted to me on this mountain of Shasta. And was I willing to stand there and be in it for days and face it to see what was coming up, what was the healing, what were the gifts that were being given to me. And I can say to you directly, the gift has been this incredible being that's next to me. And all the process of facing the fears and moving through the past and letting it go was the key element, which I will talk about from here to the end of my life. Because if we are living in the past, we're missing the present. And that's huge, isn't it?
It's huge.
Present. Being in the present. And that's not easy for almost anybody because, as you know, and we've talked about this too, when you're sitting in meditation, and this was the other thing I was going to bring up, a lot of times the thoughts don't stop, do they?
No.
In fact, sometimes it's worse, right? And so how do you deal with that? I mean, what would you say to people that are trying to be quiet, trying to be calm, and yet these hundreds of thoughts because of their trauma or whatever's happening? How do you deal with that? What's the best way you would suggest that people deal with that?
Well, this word that we use to describe now, present, it's like describing ourself. So when you're in the moment, in the present, you are absolutely resting in yourself. Now the mind has a job, And the mind's job is never to rest. I mean, it really rarely rests. We have dreams at night. We have thoughts moving through during the day. It really has nothing to do with dropping into the present moment. It's kind of like a radio station that just never goes off. Now, you may experience moments of a quiet mind, and it's so beautiful. It's so restful. It does happen. And you may be a practitioner of techniques which allows you to have longer periods of a quiet mind, and that also is very beautiful. But I believe we all experience that when the techniques are set aside and we go to dinner or whatever, the mind comes back because that's what it's supposed to do. None of this has anything to do with awareness, with resting in the heart, with being centered, with allowing the gifts to come through. The mind will just do what it wants to do. It's like the expression, the mind has a mind of its own.
It does have a mind of its own, and certainly what we have seen over and over is that mind is basically running the matrix of this planet. Would you say that would be an appropriate statement to make?
Yes.
Yes. The reason I brought this up is that we did see the Matrix movie again the other evening. Now for me it's about number 35 time, and it's such a great metaphor for what we're dealing with and how we're experiencing the programs, the loops, the mental aspects of the mind, and how it tricks us into staying in the matrix, right? I want to throw this out here because I think we're about ready to take a break here in just a moment. I'd like to go back, if we could, to the last image before this one, and leave this maybe with our audience before we take this break, and then we'll deal with the idea of what that might be if we can get it up, and if we can't, we'll bring it up and after we get through with the break. But yes, here we go. Two of these areas that we'd like you to maybe ponder as we take a break here, an intermission, and at that break time, as you're pondering this for a few minutes, we're going to take a break. We'll flash the screen and go to some music. And if you have any questions that you'd like to ask us or send in the chat room, by all means, this would be a great time to do it. And when we come back, we have a lot more to discuss, and we hope that you'll join us. So we'll be back in a few moments. Welcome. We're back here after the intermission, the second part of the webinar series, Part 1, 2012, The Gateway to Universal Awakening. So when we left before the break, we had put a couple questions up on the screen, and we wanted to come back to these and address them, at least talk about them for a few moments before we go into the next area of travel, where we're going. So one of the first question is, how can we be open to the shift in conscious awareness? In other words, how can we stay open even though all the drama and traumas are going on in our life? How would you throw that out and suggest that we deal with that from your perspective and your practice and that what you've experienced in your life?
I like to speak about things in a very simple way. There are two primary movements in life. There's contraction and there's expansion. Contraction is reactive, it's patterned, it's fight or flight. We all have the experience of contraction, whether it's pain in the body, as we were speaking about earlier, or whether it's an emotion like anger or resentment or fear. These are all contractions, and I'm sure each of us can reference many other types of contraction. Expansion or opening is the counterpart to contraction. It's really a continuum, but it's a counterpart. So the question, basically, I believe, is how do we move from contraction to expansion? And it's quite simple, not necessarily easy. It's a slowing down. It's allowing a moment, 10 minutes, however long, doesn't really matter. It's not time-based, but allowing a slowing down to occur, a dropping inside, so to speak. From this slowing, this dropping inside, openness happens. It's just organic. With that openness, all of these shifts that are moving through, that are causing these contractive reactions, can instead be open to, and the expansion of what's being offered this year can occur. Many of these contractions are actually expanding into pain that's been held in the body for the entire life. Each of us have these layers and layers of pain. So it is the most efficient and beautiful way to both receive the gifts of the opening and elevation of consciousness, and also begin to shed organically, without effort, these layers of pain that have been held within each of our bodies.
It reminds me of the earth itself, Mother Earth. In the indigenous cultures, they refer to Mother Earth, Father Sun, and as the shifts of the poles are taking place within all the planets within our solar system, including the sun, there is this juxtaposition or this dramatic change. So things are shuffling and they're breaking down. And it makes me reference the idea of what Mother Earth is experiencing right now with the way that she's been treated in terms of the ecology of the planet, her children, all of us, and how we've lost our way in that balance or that perception, and the masculine, feminine aspect of that as well. So this is really quite large in its nature, and yet we still seem to have to bring it back to us, don't we?
It's like a mirror. What we see happening on the outside is mirrored inside each of us. It's going to take on a unique and completely personal flavor inside of you, but the same resonance is happening inside of me, inside of Lee, inside of your child. I mean, it's all happening, and it's mirrored from this gorgeous acceptance of this planet and all of what she has received through the years, and it's just all shaping and moving and transforming.
So we're going to go to this next slide where we have this beautiful image of a woman sitting by the lake.
Right.
And again, that stillness, getting away from the craziness of the world and really coming back to self. That's a beautiful image. Maybe you could address that.
Yeah, to us, this image exemplifies the very personal, intimate journey that we each are on. How this woman is sitting in this vast expanse. I mean, there's this huge universe, and yet she's inside. She's including this vastness, but she's going inside to feel exactly what's happening to her, what's gifting her, and each of us need to do this. This is the balance. This is the dance between the inner and the outer that each of us are being asked. It's like, we're the cosmic partner to this beautiful dance of transformation that's being offered in this time, 2012.
So we can't stress enough, interesting word, to get quiet, to de-stress, to extract yourself away from the external environment. I suggest turning off the TV as much as possible, because we know what that represents for many of us. There's another aspect of this now, and maybe we can move on to the next point that has to do with the gifts for 2012, which has been showing up with a lot of people, fear.
Right.
How do we deal with fear and all the ramifications of whatever is happening in one's life in this moment? What would you like to expound upon with the idea of fear?
It's challenging to speak of fear as a gift, and yet it is one of the greatest gifts. Once we stop running away from whatever it is that has brought forth this experience, this familiar experience of fear, we turn around and we meet this fear, and we look this fear right in the eyes. And we join with it. We don't label it as something bad. We actually meet it as some kind of strange friend that's been with us for our whole lives. Something incredibly beautiful happens organically. And it happens through the heart. And it's a kind of strengthening. It's a kind of courage that has nothing to do with what you might do or say or how you might be. It's courage that's coming from within. And it's this strength and this courage that's wanting to be born from the seed of fear. So fear, which definitely is coming up for many, many people during this transition year 2012, is actually this fabulous gift. If the turning isn't from running away, but it's from running towards and meeting it and looking at it with this wonder and curiosity. What are you? What is this fear? When you do that, organically, this strength arises, this courage. And it comes with it is this beautiful intuition also. So fear is present in many, many lives. We hear this all the time. We get these phone calls, these dear, beautiful phone calls of people that are afraid of what's happening personally, what's happening in the collective. And yet, when they turn around, they begin to see what it's bringing forth in them.
You saw the image on the screen of the wonderful lion from The Wizard of Oz and his concerns about he was afraid.
Yes, he thought he had no courage. And yet, when push came to shove and the situation turned around and his heart spoke forth, he was the most courageous. It was always there. And it's that way in each of us. He turned around and something from his heart, his love for Dorothy or whatever it was in the story, said, And so this courage that was always there, it was never lost.
Courage. What a great segue. Courage. What a word. I know from my personal experiences over the years, I've had some pretty dynamic, multidimensional experiences that you can register and look at on my website and some of the things I've come out in the public and talked about at large. And I know that every time that I had to face something that was very unknown to me, was not of this world, literally, that my only way through it was to go back into myself and to allow what was being presented to me. And it wasn't known, although there was a part of me that knew that there was something of a gift here, as we've talked about. And so when you're getting a knock on your front door that someone's going to foreclose on your house, or that you've lost your job, or that you have concerns about where you're living in terms of what could happen with an earthquake or a tsunami, these are the types of things that are all the trigger events, but it isn't necessarily where we want to be. We want to, again, come back to the inside here, and as you said, resting inside that place. And we have this next slide up here, which it's the eyes will tell you alone, and fear of the unknown, which is the fear that we're talking about, and how do we dispel that fear?
I feel it's very helpful to ask for support from someone who's traveled through this path, maybe a step or two ahead, someone that is living life with less fear than perhaps you are in that moment. This can be just the helping hand that you need. This, as we were talking about, this character, the lion. It wasn't that he didn't have courage. It wasn't that he didn't have wisdom and the sense of balance inside him. It's just that he thought he didn't. So to be with someone that can help you go through the slowing process, this centering process, it could be this someone could be a beautiful piece of music. This someone could be a friend that you call. This someone could be people such as Lee or I that work with people in sessions. It could be anything. But reach out to what I'm right now labeling as someone, something, so that your own sense of equanimity will be brought forth and strength.
I've had a personal friend that's been going through severe challenges financially, and it's been a very intense period for them. And every once in a while, I'll get a phone call, and it's crisis moment. And one of the things that I continually suggest is pull back, take a breath. The one sentence or the phrase that I continually use with people is that no matter how bad it is right now, it will be okay, even if it doesn't look like it. Because that's exactly what you said to me the first time I had a personal session with you. And I mean, I was in dire straits. I was pretty fired up, and my heart was burning. And you said this will be the greatest gift you've ever received. And I'm, in that moment thinking, she must either be crazy or she's brilliant. And in that moment, what she said to me a week or 2, 3 later, it really, I saw the gift. But you planted the seed. So what we're offering here today is we're planting a seed that no matter what is going on in your life, somehow or another, it will be okay. Somehow.
Actually, it will be more than okay. When seeds such as this are planted, it's planted because you're absolutely ready to go what for many is a very high road. We've lived lives of reactivity, of fear, of running away from the moment-to-moment gifts that are being offered to each of us. When you listen to a program like this, or you read a book, or you talk to a wisdom teacher, or you meet somebody on the street that just happens to say something that triggers inside of you, that something completely different is true than what you've believed or thought your entire life, that it's all for you, it's all a gift, and something magnificent is going to come from this, even though it feels like punishment or like the worst thing that could happen, or it's just loaded with fear. When you accept the idea that, wait a minute, maybe there is something here. maybe this 2012 prophecy, maybe they didn't quite mean what's being taken literally. Maybe this feeling I'm having is just a doorway to something beautiful that I've never even imagined. This is what we're saying in many different ways to you today, because this is what I've seen for years working with people who've had chronic illness, that once they've stepped into this, it's dissolved away. It's been just energy moving through, trying to get attention. Or a situation like with Lee when he first came to me, and it felt like the worst thing that had ever happened, and it flipped around to be one of the most beautiful things that had ever happened. Openness again to the mystery of this beautiful year, to the mystery of your beautiful life, is what we're trying to convey in this sharing with you today. There are many, many things that are happening to each of us that we've never experienced before. And I dare say they are all gifts, every one of them.
And there will be many more things in this coming year that I'm sure we have not experienced before, from everything that seems to be lining up from the cosmos down to our personal life. One of the things that I wanted to go back to for a moment, too, when you said the experience I had and coming to you, it seems as though at some moment during our lifetime, the constant programs or the belief systems, perceptions, when all of a sudden a shocking, traumatic, or disengaging event takes place, there is that period of either crashing and burning or somehow staying with the pain, suffering, whatever, and there becomes this heightened awareness. There becomes this sense of going past it, and people that have had extreme traumatic events, a child stuck underneath the car, and a mother can lift the car up and get the child from underneath it. We have this ability as humans and as divine beings, cosmic, intelligent beings, to be able to go through these experiences. That's why the movie The Matrix and what Neo had to go through in his exploration of awakening, actually it feels, and I have said this in public, I believe every single one of us is going through this now. Now, whether we choose to accept it and allow it, or whether we resist it, that seems to be the challenge, isn't it?
It is a challenge, and that's why we are, in many different ways, speaking to this crucial suggestion to allow every single opportunity that comes into your daily life to be an opportunity to practice opening to, relaxing into, accepting, patient observance of what's happening. This is the best training for what ultimately is each of our destinies, whether it happens this moment, this year, the next moment, the next year. It doesn't matter when it happens, but each of us have a destiny to awaken. And the way that we practice is by accepting moment to moment what's being offered.
And we now know from what the ancient prophecies and predictions were suggesting, that this year and even in the past few years, that it was going to be really a terrible situation on this planet. And in fact, a lot of the prophecies have basically dissolved or not happened. And I believe that part of that is this collective congruence is starting to take place, where people are allowing and accepting that we do not have to destroy ourselves or see the earth destroyed, or believe that because we have no control, which is a big issue with a lot of people. But more importantly is that people are coming together now and sharing what they'd like to experience instead of what they thought they had to experience. That's a little tricky, but how would you address that?
You know, in traditional times, when a spiritual aspirant was seeking the truth or awakening, he or she would look for a wisdom teacher to guide them. And this wisdom teacher, whether it be a man or a woman, would intimately know what was the next step, the next challenge for his or her student, and that's what would be given. At times it could be harsh seeming, sometimes gentle and loving, but most often, if this was a serious aspirant who wanted to really know the truth, really awaken, the teacher would push that student just to the edge of what was possible for that student to accept and to move through, to take him or her to the next step. This is what's happening with our planet, with the personal circumstances that are happening to each of us in our bodies and our lives. When Lee referenced that things haven't been happening quite as dramatically as has been prophesized, we believe that's because everything is intricately tailored for the circumstance, for the collective, for the personal. And so we will never be pushed over the edge further than what will serve us. In our life, our modern day life, very few of us have that rare gift of an intimate wisdom teacher. This is happening, this gift of the wise teacher, knowing exactly what's right for you, is happening moment to moment. It's happening through the planet. It's happening through your daily circumstances and experiences.
And I believe it is happening because we as a collective intelligence have moved past the teacher or the individual stage. We're now becoming the collective consciousness of intelligence, which is leading us in this next slide that I wanted to show. We've heard a lot about the North and South Pole melting and these enormous glaciers that have been around for a long, long time. They seem to be disappearing back to the water, and we thought this would be a great metaphor because you see these glaciers that are, as you can see the image, there's only a very small fraction of it that shows itself on the surface of the water as your boats and certainly ships are traveling around them. But look at the depth of a glacier that I understand is at least 2/3 of it is underneath the water, and yet we're starting to see these glaciers melt. It's kind of a metaphor for what was so hardened or so scary or we had to go around in the past. So how would you address that?
In each of our lives, there is so much that's been hidden, so much that happened when we were very young children that we couldn't process or embrace because it was too traumatic or too big for this little mind, to deal with. And layer by layer, just as the iceberg, formed layer by layer under the surface, these pieces have been stored within us, have been sort of shelved for another time when I could handle that, or I could process that, or think about that, or be with that. This is the beautiful metaphor of the tip of the iceberg. We have these opportunities now where the tip is showing even more than ever through these experiences of intensity that are coming up in this year 2012. At the same time, what's occurring is that everything is warming up on the planet. So just as the layers are melting away and returning to their source, which is water, all of these layers of pain and unprocessed, memory of the past are dissolving away with all of the intensity and experiences that are coming up for each of us and for the collective also.
And if we took the analogy directly with the ancient wisdom teachings, and if we remember the slide that we showed you at the beginning of this whole webinar, part 1 series, is that everything seems to be lining back up towards what we call the 0 point, a rebalancing of all that has happened in the past. And it also says to us that this is a great opportunity for letting go of the past. The ancient ones say that we're going to see the magnetics of the planet dropping now as the poles are starting to drop. It's opening up the magnetosphere. We're much more vulnerable to plasma, photon, solar rays, all of these things that are melting, but also activating the very essence of our physical body, which we will talk about in the 3rd or 4th webinar series. That how is this affecting you physically? How is this affecting you energetically? Because remember, we are a part of the entire cosmos, every single one of us, and every single cell in our body is just an emanation of that same aspect of divinity or God or source, as you mentioned. So in this beautiful analogy of the iceberg and the idea that everything is melting away, the 0 point of 2012, December 21st, I believe is giving us a tremendous opportunity to reboot, to see the defragmentation or the breaking down of systems that no longer hold the frequencies of what we're moving towards in this new reality of the emerging new world. Does that sound fairly accurate in your reality?
My languaging is a little different, but absolutely. The way I like to speak about this is that this 0 point, this is a shift. It's a shift from a mind-based reality and identification with thoughts, with accumulation of facts, of moving through life the way we've been told that we should move through life. And it's an opening to something that is much more organic and authentic. It's opening to, again, what we're referencing as the heart, where there's spontaneity, there's intuition, there's a sense of knowingness, there's movement that's responsive, not movement that's reactive. This is the way that I like to embrace this concept of 0 point. In the traditions, there was a point. The vertical axis was everything in, the cosmos. The horizontal axis was everything in the transactional reality of human life. And there was a point right in the middle where the two joined. It was a neutral point. And this is what's being referenced by Lee as 0 point and what's being referenced by me as heart. This is the point of quiet knowingness. This is the point where all creativity springs from.
So the gifts of 2012, if I'm to hear this with what you've just said, has a lot to do with patience, letting go, the programs, the mental loops, the issues that come up for people that seem to challenge them, and you keep cycling back to the same situation no matter how many times you're wanting to break a pattern. These are the things that we both have addressed with people in private sessions and continue to do so. So basing, and also the emotional ties that we are connecting with our past. The idea of patience, how about kindness? Does that help in this? I mean, people say, well, I can't go out and change the world and I'm not a part of a movement. What are some of the simple things that people can do every day in their life that we could just to offer today?
I believe that action springs from source. So kindness is a byproduct of what we've been pointing to through this entire broadcast today, this offering. It's a byproduct of going inside, of connecting with something that is moving more slowly, that is embracing more completely than the mental mind. When action springs from that source, the action organically is generous. It's kind. It's compassionate. It's gentle. It's alive. It's loving.
Okay. Right in the flow of that, we have a couple questions that people sent to us during the break in the chat room. The first one, a very poignant question, very specific. They wanted to know, so you're talking about fear, you're talking about addressing experiences, in my mental, emotional body. Well, what happens, how do I deal with it physically? And I'm putting this to both of us. I think we're going to address this at length in the third or fourth webinar, but if we could just give them, like we had said earlier, some meditation, getting quiet with the mind, some of the physical things that one could do. I think, if we looked at exercise, yoga, body movement is very important right now, isn't it? Because we both are doing that every day to move the energy through.
Yeah. Yeah, there's such an intensity of energy coming into everyone's life. We hear this from so many people that call us saying, what can we do? I just feel really edgy, or my body hurts, or I'm finding that I'm losing my my equilibrium with my children or my pets or whatever. On a very simple level, it's going back to that concept of balance, where get out and move, allow this energy to just burn off and move through. It's not really your energy, it's just something that's moving through you, and it just wants to keep going. So, assisted by being active, put on your stereo and dance,
Yes.
jump on your bed, whatever is fun, just let the energy move through.
Well, one of the primary issues that come up when I'm doing sessions with people, especially the first one, is that I find that a lot of people are not in their body. They're ungrounded. They're in their head. They're into the fear, or they don't want to be here on the planet because of the stress and the turmoil. And, one of the first things that we do is to get you grounded, to get you back in your body, to go through this process of this year, to be on this earth. If you want to even take the word ascending or moving to the next dimension, a lot of people use this, you've got to be in your present body physically. You've got to embody the body. I mean, you can't be out there in the cosmos and expect that you're going to be able to surf through this and deal with your daily activities and even be here physically. So I think that's one of the big things. Also, moderate diets, not eating too heavy of meats or getting too indulgent in anything, but not also being so strict that you can't relax as well. Because, a glass of wine here and there, chocolate, a little bit of those good things. But also the diet, that plays a key role into de-stressing the physical body. So because it's less activity in the digestive and it's taking away the energy. So those are the types of things too.
Yeah. Again, we're going back to this basic. There's contraction, there's expansion. So whatever for you allows the body to expand, to open, to relax, whatever that means to you, go in that direction. Think about these two principles. Is there a contraction being experienced in the body, in the throat, in my emotional nature? Or has there been an opening so that these energies are moving through, but they don't have me tied in a kind of knot? So 2012 is not about rules. It's not about authorities telling you what to do. It's only about gentle suggestions from friends like Lee and me saying, let's just go inside. Let's receive the gifts. Let's stay balanced by paying attention to what works individually, what works for you today. What works for you today may not be at all what works for you tonight or works for you tomorrow. This is really the very early stages of absolute freedom to move with what's happening moment to moment. no rules, completely out of the system, in this beautiful flow. This promise of 0 point is a promise of living a life entirely in this flow. Awareness is the key. Become aware of what you're feeling. Become aware of what you're putting in your mouth. Become aware of whether you've been sitting all day and you haven't allowed your body, to move and flow with the energies that are coming through. If you notice that you've been sitting all day or eating junk food, become aware of that. Don't fault yourself, not for a moment. Just become aware of it. With that awareness, a shift will come. It's really doing this dance with these energies that are coming through. That's how the gifts will be received. You're all dancers.
And the imbalances that you might feel from the extremes, that you don't want to feel the fear, or if you get into boredom, even people getting bored, they'll eat foods or they'll eat stuff and they'll just, not be aware of what they're doing. Another aspect that we find very helpful is body, water, body. Getting the body and water together. Water. And because the water flushes, it clears, it helps to balance the system. We have a wonderful chance here in Mount Shasta up in Ashland, and even here in Stewart Mineral Springs, to get in water where you soak and be with the elements. These are things that are going to help balance these extraordinary energies that are literally bombarding us physically, on the earth, in our bodies, and everything around us. So everything's getting electrically charged up more. And water seems to be able to calm it down and bring balance to it.
It calms it down, and it's a conduit. If you're not around a mineral spring, so you don't like to take baths, take a shower. Take 3 showers. Things get intense. Water clears away the contraction, opens you to the expansion, allows the energy to move through and do what it knows best to do, which has nothing to do with what we think it should do. It just is, this is wisdom moving through in this energy. So yes, water, drink water, be in water. Water is one of your best friends through intensity.
A little chocolate's not bad. And a glass of wine here and there, or a beer, certainly will calm the spirits without overindulging, because we find that we can't even do that anymore. Our body just doesn't want it. The last thing that we'll talk about before we wrap this up is reading your body. One of the things I do every morning when I get up is, what does my body want? What do I want to eat? Actually, I'll ask it what it wants to eat during the day. And since we both have very similar tastes, it's pretty easy to do that, because we both like a lot of fresh organics. We like things that are going to increase our activity, our aliveness, our chi, whatever you want to call it, but also doing yoga, things that are going to move the energy in balancing and relaxing. So these are the key elements that we're going to get into in depth. We're going to offer some very specific techniques, which I'll bring forward in the 3rd or 4th webinar down the road here, having to do with the tools that you can help to open your chakras. These are simple little things that can help keep the balance as we're going through these shifts and changes. But again, you still have to internalize it. It's not just a technique. We're not trying to offer fixes for you here. This is something that's really important. So we're coming to the end, believe it or not. It's been almost 90 minutes. I wanted to show this last image here on the screen, which is really what we've been talking about, the water image, of course, and the gifts of 2012. Before we sign off here, gifts of 2012, a wrap up summary. What would you say we could leave our audience with today?
Just as the person in this image, each of you are your own teacher. Each of you are your own guide. There is this incredible vastness that is opening up for each of us. And there are helpers along the way. There are suggestions along the way, seeds being planted that will spring forth as time goes on. But in essence, it's a collective movement that's happening individually. I know this sounds like a great paradox, but it's the truth. So have a beautiful ride. We hope to be with you on our next webinar.
One other question that was asked of us: what's the point of all of this? Why am I doing this? And I'm going to just use one word to sum it all up from my reality, and that is freedom. Freedom. And you can take that whatever way you'd like to experience that in this moment. And with that, we would like to let you know that our next webinar will be on March the 18th, which is about a month from now. And we're going to be talking about why relationships are transforming. And are they transforming?
Yeah.
What would you like to say quickly about that?
Oh, my goodness. Everything is a relationship, and everything is transforming. And yet we're going to focus on intimate relationships primarily, although we will talk about relationships with our governments, right? Relationships with the world at large. So that's just a little hint to what we're going to talk about.
Yes, and we might even share a little of our personal stuff if you would like to get into the juicy parts. So we're going to have some fun with this. We don't want this to be so serious and so, dogmatic. We would like to open this up, and we hope that you'll send us more questions in the chat room, even if we're done with the broadcast, and we'll address them in the next webinar. Tell your friends if you enjoyed this today, if it makes sense at all. Like I said, our next webinar will be on March the 18th. We certainly enjoyed it. This is our first time out together live, which is kind of challenging nowadays, but we thought, what the heck? We had the courage, and we're going to go for it. So we're going to continue to do the live series, but you can go see the pay-per-view 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we'll let you know what our schedule is coming up in the springtime with our travels to the eastern part of the United States and workshops. And if you are interested at all in a private session with Amara and or myself, you can go onto the website, emergingnewworld.com. This will give you information, maybe a little bit of a summary of what we do. And if you would like to call us directly, we'd be available for that. We're limited on our time, but we are doing some private sessions. And we hope you enjoyed it today. So I'm Lee Patrick Hanks here from Mount Shasta, California, along with
Amara.
And we thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful 2012. And remember, it's all about freedom.